Hey everybody, it's Carson Gordy, the Champagne Sports Anchor. We're here to talk about Illinois football recruiting. This is something that historically was not always a fun topic to talk about. Think about those Lovie Smith era. He couldn't recruit the state, and Illinois was usually ranked in the 40s and 50s, and even in recent years, even under Brett Bielema, Illinois was in the 40s. But this year is a lot different. When you win 10 games, when you make a Citrus Bowl, and you send a bunch of kids to the NFL, you got a pretty good sales pitch. When we look at the big recruiters like Rivals, like 24/7 Sports, Illinois is seeing their highest level since the Ron Zook era. Rivals currently has Illinois ranked 9th in the country. 24/7 Sports has them at 12th. Recently, Illinois actually just did lose a recruit, Jahvari Barnett, to the Alabama Crimson Tide. He decommitted from Illinois. This was a 3-star running back from Florida. So that's a loss. I don't think it's the biggest loss in the world, but it is a loss. But overall, Illinois is still trending in the right direction. Pretty soon, I'm going to be getting to updates about Mack, Sutter, and J.C. Anderson. Those are two 4-star tight ends from the Central Illinois area. Those are two guys where if Brett Bielema can land both, I had a friend joke that Brett Bielema should get a statue built. Those are two guys that can improve the passing offense a lot. And also, that would just be a really good PR win for Illinois if you got two 4-star tight ends. Some top guys that Illinois has signed recently. Pritchard, the offensive lineman from New Jersey, that is a 4-star. Nazir Rankin, that's a 4-star wide receiver from Morgan Park. That's where Ayo Sumu went to school. He's ranked as the second best player in the state of Illinois. Another guy's Cam Thomas. This is a 4-star linebacker from Ohio that actually went to the same high school as Grant Bierman, the freshman linebacker for Illinois right now. Cam's been very popular on social media. He joins a bunch of podcasts and talk about, his commitment to Illinois. Seems like he's got really good energy. We saw one report from Greg Smith that he shut down his commitment. A lot of times in college football, until you sign the letter of intent in December, schools are calling you. Kids might be listening to different schools. Supposedly from the report from Greg Smith, that's over for Cam. Illinois also has another 4-star commit, Michael Clayton from Florida. This is a guy that rejected offers from Auburn, Baylor, and Arkansas, and he decided to sign with this Illinois program. I actually talked to him a little bit when I saw him at the Illinois football camp last week. He likes the direction of the program. He likes the offense and also the vibe.
Just the relationships I built with the coaches, Coach Art, Coach Lunny, Coach B. Definitely just the opportunity to come here and play early, and just like the family vibe that I got here.
Another cool part, he also got to meet Juice Williams. When Juice Williams led Illinois to the Rose Bowl, Michael Clayton was 1 year old.
Heard a lot about him, just like the success that he's had here, and just really that, and just being able to meet him today was really nice. Just being able to see him really passing the torch, you know what I mean? It was nice.
And finally, another guy that Illinois picked off was Nick Hakens. This is a 4-star corner from the Belleville, Illinois area. And if you don't know Illinois geography, Belleville is near that St. Louis area. And Nick was telling a reporter from St. Louis, a lot of times, those downstate Illinois kids, sometimes they like to go to Missouri. Nick told the St. Louis reporter maybe that's something that he wants to change in the future, where Illinois becomes the new hotspot for St. Louis. We saw some success in that area when Corey Patterson was position coach for Illinois. Isaiah Williams, Keith Randolph. There's a lot of pockets in that St. Louis area, and Brett Bielema would love to recruit there. And Nick is a cornerback, and he kind of cements the status that Illinois is kind of becoming an NFL factory for these corners. And this is a place where, transfers and also high school recruits, they're going to trust Brett Bielema and Corey Parker to take them to the next level. Look at some of the guys that Illinois has developed. Sidney Brown, Devin Witherspoon, 5th overall pick, Quan Martin, Kirby Joseph, and then Xavier Scott's going to be there next year. The fact that Nick turned down offers from Missouri, Iowa, Tennessee, that just shows that the program's going in the right direction. He did not always recruit the highest rated high school recruiting classes, but obviously he had an eye for talent. I mean, most of these guys that Brett Bielema sent to the NFL, which is 14 over the last 4 years, they're pretty good players. I mean, Chase Brown, Sidney Brown, a lot of offense linemen are going to the NFL. But if I trust Brett Bielema to develop 2 and 3 stars, imagine what he could do with a Mack Sutter. Imagine how much he's going to win when he has several four stars on the roster. Over the last 4 years, there's only three Big Ten schools that have more top 100 NFL draft picks, and that is Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. So that's pretty good company for this Illinois football program. I talked to one recruit, Tony Williams. He's a linebacker from Florida, the Jacksonville area. I asked him, like, if is Illinois just viewed better among high school recruits, and he said yes. And I've talked to multiple recruits, and the game that always stands out is that Michigan game last year. Wearing those leather helmets, beating the defending national champions on CBS 21-7. That was a dominating game. That was the kind of victory that elevated the program in recruits' eyes. And now let's get to the new news. Illinois right now, 9th by Rivals, 12th by 24/7 Sports. That's really good. Even if Illinois finished top 20 this year, that's awesome. Because even last year, it was in the 40s. The year before, it was in the 40s. Lovie Smith would be in the 50s, and sometimes I think it even got to the 60s. But two guys can cement this recruiting class, and it's Mack Sutter and J.C. Anderson. Let's talk about Mack Sutter. He's a four-star tight end that's 6'5". He is a legitimate pass-catching threat, and Brett Bielema actually watched one of his high school basketball games in January, and he had pretty high praise.
2026 in the state of Illinois is actually loaded, but also downstate. Yeah, I was in a basketball game last night that, I watched a young man play that I because of what I know and what I've seen, this kid will not only be a player in college, he'll play in the NFL.
Sutter is down to 4 schools, and he's going to make his decision on Thursday, June 26. It's down to Ohio State, Ole Miss, Alabama, and the University of Illinois. Third-rated tight end in the country actually just visited Alabama over the weekend. And, if you read a Rivals report or you just kind of hear the buzz, sometimes it does seem like the Crimson Tide is the front runner. But I think Illinois is throwing everything they can at Mack Sutter and is making this a very, very competitive recruitment. One thing they're doing is, they're playing up to the home state vibes. They offered his younger brother, Bo, a class of 2028 linebacker, a scholarship, his very first one. I asked Mack what it was like to see his brother get that.
That was hyped. We were all in the final meeting with Coach Bielema. We were all in his office talking, and then when he told that, my whole family was pumped, and Bo especially just gave him the biggest hug I've ever seen. It was really cool and memorable.
Another thing about Mack is that he actually has family ties to the University of Illinois. His grandfather played for the University of Illinois in 1950. His dad was a linebacker at Northwestern. He was a 2-time MVP of that team, co-Big Ten Freshman of the Year, and played in the NFL for 5 years. And he's got really good options. Like, you're looking at the University of Alabama. I know Nick Saban's gone, but Kalen DeBoer is the new head coach. And last year, they only go 9-4, but that was his first year. He did a really good job at Washington, leading them to the national championship in 2023. And historically, DeBoer always has really good offenses. They throw the ball around. Michael Penix was a runner-up for the Heisman Trophy in 2023. Or just rehired his offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, who got fired from the Seattle Seahawks. He's back with DeBoer at Alabama. And last year, Alabama's tight end, they did use him a little bit. His name was Westover. He had 46 receptions for 433 yards. At Illinois, the tight end position has been interesting. They've had some really good names. For example, Luke Ford was a big name. That was a 5-star that transferred from the University of Georgia, but he just was never that productive of a pass catcher, even though he was a pretty good blocker. Another guy was Daniel Barker, who ended up transferring to Michigan State after a couple years, but he would have 4 or 5 touchdowns a year for the Fighting Illini. If you look at Brett Bielema historically, the tight end position has been very productive. University of Wisconsin, they would regularly get 35-plus catches a year. And at Arkansas, he was one of the only teams in the country to have, for 3 straight seasons, a tight end drafted by an NFL team. And the big one, of course, was Hunter Henry, who plays for the Los Angeles Chargers. He was a second-round pick in the 2010s. And that was a guy that was heavily used as a wide receiver threat at the University of Arkansas. And then even at Illinois, Brett Bielema was able to ship Tip Ryman off to the NFL as a 3rd-round pick. So Brett Bielema, he has a pitch to J.C. Anderson and Mack Sutter. Like, historically, at Arkansas, Wisconsin, and Illinois, he's been able to send kids to the NFL. At Wisconsin and Arkansas, they had really high volume. And at Illinois, maybe he just hasn't had the right piece yet to make them a high-volume catcher. You would assume if Mack or JC came to the University of Illinois, they would get plenty of touches. The other player is JC Anderson. He's a Mount Zion product. And for around a year, he's been considered a serious recruiting target for the University of Illinois. Definitely longer than Mack, just by a little bit. JC and Mack have actually talked about what it would be like playing with each other.
Oh, yeah, JC and I definitely have. We always talk about that because, we've grown up playing sports against each other and with each other, so that's kind of all we talk about. It'd be cool if we went to the same place and balled out together.
We definitely have talked about that, just like if the stars align, obviously we would love to play together. I think that'd be really cool just because we both complement each other's games pretty well, just the type of tight ends we are, so.
JC, he's going to make a decision on July 1st. It's actually his mother's birthday from what we hear. He's going to pick it at Mount Zion High School at 11 a.m. on July 1st. One of his former teammates, Braden Trimble, actually plays on the University of Illinois. He's the new 4-star freshman wide receiver that the staff has just adored and loved over the course of the spring practice. From work ethic to speed, I think Braden Trimble could get a little bit of playing time as a freshman, and definitely as a sophomore, junior, when Beatty's gone and Dixon's gone. I think Braden Trimble is going to be a fan favorite for the University of Illinois. JC's last schools, what he's down to is the University of Ole Miss, Auburn, and Illinois. Those are three really good schools that all have their positive attributes. When you look at Ole Miss, this is a place where Lane Kiffin has turned them into a consistent 8 to 10 win program. And usually, Lane Kiffin, they put up some points, 35, 40 points per game. Last year, tight ends had 40 receptions, and they were a 10-win program again. And then Auburn is the other interesting school for sure. Their head coach is Hugh Freeze. Historically, really good offenses when he was the former head coach at Ole Miss. Auburn's been more of a mixed bag. And Auburn, they've been recruiting really well. Their classes. We're seeing top 10 classes. We see their tight ends get a lot of action. Fairweather, I think was his name, had 40 receptions in back-to-back years. But so far, we haven't seen the win totals yet at Auburn. 6-6 the first year, 5-7 the next year. But again, it's only year two. With the recruiting in the positive direction, that is an interesting program to watch. And they've been recruiting J.C. Anderson hard. And then finally, the last school is Illinois. This is a school where we've seen J.C. Anderson visit often over the course of the last year. Going to multiple basketball games in the winter, having a former teammate on the roster, going to those Illinois football camps. I asked JC, what is it like to get close to these coaching staffs? And you got to tell two of them, I'm not going to play for you. And I asked JC Anderson what that's like.
That's one of the hardest parts of the process for me is telling these guys no, because I become really close with all these position coaches because I'm a relationships person. So to me, that's the hardest part. But if they're mad about you saying no, then they weren't. They weren't the right place to go anyways.
I would just say my final point about these players, I'm not in the prediction business. These are two really good kids, and they got a lot of good options. Illinois is an up-and-coming program. Brett Bielema shows that he can send kids off to the NFL. You look at Auburn, they're recruiting really well. Ole Miss, same situation. They're a consistent 10-win program. Sutter also has offers from Alabama and Ohio State. Enough said. All I'm going to say is recruiting's not done until December. These college kids are going to continue to get calls from different schools until they sign that letter of intent in December. And recruitment changes. Illinois just had a player decommit. Barnett seemed like he was going to be in Illini, and then Alabama recruits him really hard. Extreme example, but last year, heading into 2024, you could argue Purdue had some momentum. Ryan Walters was a young coach. They had a couple good young pieces with, Claire as the tight end, and then they also had a really good defensive back. They started to recruit high school a little bit better. And then they start getting blown out earlier in the year, and those players are looking for different schools, and they lost their entire class. School goes 10-2, 9-3, you're going to keep your summer commitments more likely. But if you have an off year, and you go 5-7, 4-8, 6-6, those kids might, in general, kids might start looking at different schools. So it's going to be important for Illinois this year to stick the landing, to not have that disappointing 6-6, 5-7 year, which we saw in 2023. Illinois heading into 2023 was a dark horse to win the West Division. coming off an 8-win season and having the top defense in the country. I think Illinois is better suited this year to follow up with a good season. You have several players projected to go in the NFL next year, from Luke Altmaier to J.C. Davis to Gabe Yakus to Xavier Scott. And the first half of the schedule is really difficult. You got to play at Indiana. You'll probably be underdogs. You got to play at Washington. You got to play Ohio State. You got to play USC. But then the back half of the schedule is really manageable. Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Northwestern. So if you can start the year off really strong, Illinois is in a great position to have another good year. Thank you for watching, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to watch more videos from Fox Illinois.